You called down the thunder, well now you got it. So run, you cur. Run! Tell all the other curs the law's coming! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Welcome to the Dynasty Defined podcast, a show discussing the most decorated program in the history of sports, the Oklahoma State Cowboys wrestling program. I'm your host, Lee Cothran, joined as always by Daton Fix. Daton, at this point, we're going to have to start calling you co-host, man. What's going on up in Stillwater?
Oh, just the guys got back from a pretty tough duel in Little Rock, and they're just, right back in the room. We had a good day of practice yesterday. Got a little lift in this morning, so just right back to work. Just doing the small things. That's what's going to be the difference in the end.
As we're transitioning here to the end of the season, you've got a lot more breaks between competition. So you got 2 weeks to Iowa, which we'll talk about next week. This week we're going to focus on Little Rock and some recruiting news. But next week we're going to focus on Iowa, and then you've got a couple weeks until Tulsa and the Big 12 tournament, and then you've got a couple weeks from there to NCAAs. As you get into this portion of the season, what changes? Does the intensity kind of scale back a little bit? You focus a bit more on just refining technique, staying healthy. What kind of things are you thinking about right now?
I think it just kind of depends on the type of person you are. Sometimes a lot of the people in the country, they start to get towards the end of the season and they're a little beat up. They've been cutting weight for 2-3 months and they're almost ready for the season to be over. And then there's the other type of person who they're getting excited because it's, time for the postseason and it's time to, finally get to do what you've been working on for the past 5 months. And I think that we have a lot of guys in the room that, pretty much everybody, that they're all excited. They're getting excited that the postseason's here, and this is what you work for. This is what you work for the leading up in the preseason, and you go to practice every day during the season to get better, to have a chance to go out there and perform in the postseason.
Something we heard last year after the tournament was over, the NCAA tournament was over, was the season's long. And a couple of the younger guys really didn't realize, like they knew they'd been in the room or they'd been in a room, red shirting or gray shirting. But when you got into it, it's like, oh my gosh, like January hits and injuries start to nag a bit more and cutting weight gets to be just a grind, and meals probably become a chore. I guess it's just what kind of support out there helps to frame mindsets to keep people encouraged and excited. I guess to your point, maybe the new blood in the room and being injected in Stillwater, the excitement around the program helps. But is there other community support, or does the program have, like, what does Nick do, right? Like, what does Coach Taylor do? What do they do to kind of keep y'all on that edge?
Yeah, it's just a really positive environment, right now. And I think that's good. It's good to, keep guys, keep them thinking the right way. It's easy whenever you're getting kind of grind down to the season. It's easy to, start to, think about injuries and think about how long the season's been going. But, I think the staff and the support system, it's just been really good this year. Keeping everybody positive and just thinking the right way. It's been, really good to see. Especially just as somebody that's there, a lot. It's, going really good. I think that the guys are having fun, and I think that's important. I think they're enjoying being out there, and they're enjoying just the process of going through the season and trying to get better every day.
That's great. That's really good to hear. It's definitely um, mindset plays such a massive role in everything that we do, and so being able to have people around you that are reinforcing that positive mindset, encouragement. Um, it's important to have and to not kind of get beat down by the negativity, because externally there's a lot of negativity. It's just kind of the world we live in that seems to get more clicks and more um, engagement out there in the world, which is sad, but it's true. Um, so it's good to have the people that you're looking up to or that are influencing you the most have that positive. Let's just stay the course. You can control what you can control. Ignore the external, and let's continue to do the best we can. And that's, I mean, it's funny. We're going to talk about this Little Rock duel, which the Pokes won 25-13, and we talked about it last week. What Coach Ersman and everybody has done at Little Rock is just incredible. They're a tough, really, really tough team, and we saw the results of that, where they had three guys go out and get wins that, in a couple cases, weren't big surprises, but they were just prepared. They were prepared to come out and fight. They limited bonus points in a couple different areas. And when you have that on the heels of the Iowa State duel and the UNI duel, where you went on the road and you had tough tests against really tough teams, you have some people start to ask, like, what the heck? Like, why aren't they beating these teams like they beat NC State and Virginia Tech? And the reality is, like, well, one, we're at the end of the season, and two, well, those teams are tough. Lineups are kind of set. People are positioning for where they're going to be in the postseason, and Oklahoma State has a target on its back. So you're going to see them go out and wrestle their best against you, especially, you had two record crowds in there in Northern Iowa and Little Rock. So that's just kind of the reality of it. You're going to get a tough shot from these types of teams. So I think it becomes even more important to ignore the external stuff, like what you and I are doing, quite frankly. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that there's a support system there and that these guys feel like, encouraged to go out and perform at their best.
Yeah. Little Rock, they're a really tough team. You look at their record this year, they've only lost to, number one, Penn State, number two, Oklahoma State, and then they dropped another duel to South Dakota State. But outside of that, they've really pretty much dominated everybody else. So it was good to see, the Cowboys go into Little Rock, and they had a record-setting crowd, which was awesome for them, and it was just good to see us go through a little bit of adversity. Probably the most adversity that we've seen up to this year. I don't think there's been another time where we've been losing going into 165. So it was good to see just us bounce back from that adversity and the the upper weights just do what they've done all year and just take care of business.
For sure, and we'll get to them for sure, including Luke Serber's upset over Stephen Little. But Troy Spratley really just continues his dominance here over the past month. He's had a couple of tough losses against NC State and West Virginia, but since then, we discussed it, where he's one of those guys that has a pretty short memory, and he has been coming out and really just putting it on his opponents, performing really well, scoring a lot of points, and working a lot of different positions here. What have you seen from Troy that has been encouraging? What did you see from him in this particular matchup with Jaden Carson that was encouraging?
He's coming out there with a little bit of attitude, which which we saw a little bit of it last year, but in those matches that he dropped earlier in the year, he didn't really have that kind of attitude. But these last, I'd say, 2 matches, he's definitely came out with a different attitude and just kind of a little bit of swagger. And that's good to see. Especially someone like Troy, who he's kind of known as our leadoff guy. You definitely want to see him go out there and with being a little fired up, and he's done that the last 2 duels. He looked really good against Little Rock. He was getting the legs, getting the turns on top, and I thought he had a pin at the end of the match. He kind of, the guy shot in, he whipped into his back, and the official was just kind of out of position. And by the time he got over there, he was off his back. But he wrestled pretty much a perfect match, I would say. Did everything right, and really started us off on a good foot.
Troy's riding ability, the way that he kind of works that sit through position. Yeah, I guess it depends on what the opponent's giving him in some cases, but he really seems to take good advantage of those positions and is on the lookout for maybe baiting them into trying to sit through things like that, so that he can then try to pull them through to their back. That technique, being in Eastern Oklahoma, or being a Tulsa guy as well, really, does that come from, because you look back and really you saw Dean Heil was really good at that. Eric Guerrero was really good at that. Does that come from that same kind of tree of thought there, and being that good on top, having that same kind of ability on top?
Yeah, I would say so. He was in Coach Guerrero's club for a while, and that's probably where he started to develop it. He just has a really good feel in that position. When guys kind of sit out, he goes to like kind of a deep claw, and we'll just kind of sit with them and suck them back. And a lot of the times he can catch them for a couple swipes, which is it's always nice whenever you can get back points and you're really not straining very hard. You're just kind of holding them. They're really kind of putting themselves in that position, and you're just kind of catching them there. And he's just got a really good feel in that position.
That's encouraging to hear. Especially with so many younger guys being in that club, and then with Coach Guerrero being back in Stillwater and all that stuff kind of interplaying there. I know it's probably going to be really good to see that continue to work its way into what we're seeing, right? Because I know Coach Taylor and Kennedy especially are really big on scoring from your feet and just cut them, go get more points, get your takedowns, work that. But Gilman and Guerrero and them are a lot more technique focused in riding. Make sure you get out from bottom. Make sure you are tough. Like, so people don't want to go underneath you. Basically, I think is the goal there. And I mean, you're the same way. You're an elite parterre offensive wrestler in freestyle, and then you were in folk style as well. So it's got to be encouraging to start to see some of these things come onto the mat. And we saw it from Troy because he's just one of those guys. But starting to see it from, heck, we've seen a little bit from Cale Hughes in the action we've seen him in. It's just continuing to see it kind of work out. If we get to see JJ McComas, I'm sure we'll get to see that kind of similar deal. So it's just exciting to see some of these things kind of come out and hit the mat for Oklahoma State, which is it's just encouraging, I guess, at the end of the day, to see some of the coaching trickle down.
Yeah, definitely.
Nasir Bailey put on a really tough match against Reese Whitcraft. Reese just couldn't get his offense going, and Bailey, frankly, wrestled a really clean match. He kept his elbows in. He didn't allow Reese to catch him in any mistakes. We mentioned that last week as something that he can get into those positions sometimes. Frankly, all of his losses have been because of mistakes on his part. But he wrestled an extremely clean match here and kind of seemed to know that if you can get him in a big enough hole and limit your mistakes, then you're going to be in good shape. And it seems like Bailey just kind of wrestled that strategy and took care of business here with the 12-0 major decision.
Yeah, he started off really fast. Got a takedown early. Reese was kind of, he was trying to dig his underhook, and he was just a little bit extended, and Bailey just hit a little sweep single and scored pretty easy, and then just followed up with he got to his cross wrist, which Nasir's really good at. He's got to have a really good grip, because once he gets that cross wrist on a lot of people, they're not going to get their wrist back, and he's probably going to get a couple sets of back points, and that's just what happened. And then Reese just fell behind, and whenever you're behind by 12 points against someone that's that good, they don't have to do a whole lot. And Bailey didn't really do much the third period, just held on to his lead and got the major decision win.
Yeah, that's Bailey's one of those guys. He is somebody who can definitely win a national championship at 133 this year. With you and Vito cleared out, it's kind of open up for grabs, and I think Bailey is a top 4 guy right now, and coupled in with Iowa's Ayla and Illinois' Lucas Bird, it's anybody's game, and Bailey's one of those guys, and Reese has a little bit of work to do into the day. I think that if he is going to make the podium, limiting mistakes and wrestling his match, don't force it. He can force it to them and bring it to them rather than just letting, in this case, Bailey dictated it. And I think that if he can do those things, and he's somebody who can go score some points, he's always a risk out there. But a little bit of a talent disparity in this one, it seemed.
Yeah, I think Reese is still in a good spot. He was dealing with a little bit of an injury, so he hasn't really had that many matches in the last month. Only, I think, one other one, maybe 2. So he's still got to get some matches in before he's obviously has one more match, and then he'll have the Big 12 tournament to get some matches in there before the national tournament. So I think it's just important for him to focus on his training the next couple of weeks and just get ready for the postseason. It should be pretty easy for him to get excited for the postseason. This is his last time around, so and we all know that he wants to finish his career out on a good note. So he'll be motivated for sure.
Definitely. And hey, Big 12 is wide open as well. I don't know really who the favorite is in the Big 12 at 133 right now. So he definitely can go out and win this thing in Tulsa. Evan Frost, Julian Farber, like Dom Serrano, Cleveland Belton. He beat Cleveland Belton. So he's definitely in a pretty good spot to make some noise in the Big 12. I'm excited for that for sure. Tegan Jameson took care of business here against Brennan Van Hecky, is how Shane Sparks was pronouncing it, and I've been warned about using Shane Sparks as a barometer on how to pronounce names, but you know what? The guy has never led me astray, so I'm just gonna go with it.
Jameson going to the single leg.
But yeah, Tegan,
for a roll through, steps around Bales.
Similar deal. He just kind of took care of business. He wasn't able to score late in the match to spread it to a major decision, but he did well in the first period and was able to pick up a good win here.
Yeah, he got two takedowns. 2 takedowns in the match. Was working for a third at the end of the match. And it's just kind of a testament to the Little Rock team. There was a couple weights where we were in perfect position to get bonus points right at the end of the match, and they just did a really good job of wrestling through the 7 minutes and not letting us get bonus points, which kept the dual score a little bit closer than we've seen the last couple weeks. But Tegan wrestled good. Had a little bit of an illness last week, so it was good to see him back healthy and out there looking to score the whole 7 minutes. I liked how in the third period he got the takedown and immediately cut him. He didn't really waste much time, trying to ride him. He was in the right mindset where, I got the takedown. I'm gonna, kick him away and try to get the major decision.
Yeah, that was just a well wrestled match there. It's definitely good to see him pick up the win and come back. He seemed right, really. Carter Young and Jordan Williams wrestled a classic teammate, people who are close to each other match. When it went to tiebreakers, Jordan Williams came out on top. Is again just the kind of match every time you've got people who are so familiar with each other and they wrestle when it counts. This seems to be the result more often than not, and it could be guys that are. One guy could be way better than the other, and it seems to almost always end up this way. We know both these guys are very talented, though, and both guys that are going to be looking to make a big statement this March. So, hey, Carter came out on the losing end of this one. If they meet up again, it could go the other way just as easily. It seemed to be just, it was riding time. And if you're Carter Young, you definitely can't let it get down to that. But Jordan's not exactly the best top wrestler or at best at getting out from on bottom either. So they just had one of those matches. I don't know what we can take from it.
Yeah, they've grown up wrestling each other, and they've wrestled each other the past 2 years as well, quite a bit. So whenever you wrestle someone that often and you're that familiar with your opponent, it tends to, stuff kind of tightens up. And I did like how aggressive Carter was. I felt like he was a lot more offensive than Jordan throughout the match. He was in on a lot of shots. And Jordan's, he's got kind of Gumby knees where he'll just kind of put his knee in a bad position, and the ref will stop it from potentially dangerous, just because his knees are that flexible. But he kind of gets away with it more often than not. The ref will jump in and stop it whenever. Carter was in probably 2 or 3 times where he was in pretty good position to score, and they stopped it. But I liked how Carter was offensive. He just has to learn how to finish on those type of guys that are really good at scrambling, and it's just kind of been the story this year for Carter, is just finding ways to finish whenever you get to the leg. You do a good job of getting there. You just got to find ways to finish, and then you get to the ride outs, and you've just got to find a way to ride the guy a little bit longer than just, I think it was like 12 seconds.
Yeah, 13.
You got to put at least 20 seconds, 25 seconds in that ride out if you're going to really give yourself a good chance. And if that means taking a stall call, take the stall call. Find a way to get out of bounds, get another fresh start. Just whenever you get into that ride out scenario, you got to think of it as just wrestle in little spurts, wrestling 10-second spurts. Wrestle to the ankle. If he comes to his feet, I might return him. Get out of bounds, get a fresh start. And it's, if you wrestle it in those little short segments rather than the full 30 seconds, sometimes it's easier to build that riding time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, not much more we can say about Carter Young. We love him, and we want him to get there. Just focus on the one thing. Like, if you've got a finish, you can go to and finish, then do it. Like just let's perfect that because you've got a million ways to get to a leg, and then riding his either riding and getting out both are just continued topics of discussion with him. Would be not doing our job if we didn't mention the great story that Jordan Williams seems to be becoming as well. Carter. It came out in the O'Colly last week that Carter was there to help bail him out when he got in trouble last summer. Unfortunately, was removed from the Oklahoma State program and found his place in Little Rock, which again I think really perfect place for him with the way that Coach Irishman and those guys are with young men. It's a very important thing for them to nurture a positive environment for them to come out as contributors to the broader society. And I think that Jordan couldn't have landed in a better spot. So it's good to see him on the mat and competing. And hopefully we're cheering for. I mean, we're going to keep cheering for him when he's not wrestling Oklahoma State guys. But that's a great story, and hopefully he's continues to take the most of his opportunity out there.
Yeah, definitely a good story, and we're all really proud of Jordan for sticking with wrestling, and it's going to be something that has the potential to save his life. He could easily go down a different path, and it's good that he's in a good environment now where he's got some guys that are really looking out for him.
Definitely. Matty Bianchi, somebody we talked about, he can jump up on you. He's a very talented wrestler. He's been at Little Rock a long time. I keep seeing you've seen their names a lot since the Little Rock program started. I think they were some of the first guys. I think they might have been in that first class there at Little Rock, and Matt and Joe Bianchi. And Matt came out and took advantage of Caleb Fish kind of not really being in the best position, which seems to be something that we've seen the last few matches where Caleb, it's tied at the end of the first period, and then he seems to kind of shell up a little bit in the second and third period. It seems to be what happened here as well, and he got in a bad position, and Bianchi took advantage of it and got the thought.
Yeah, it's just kind of what I've been saying the whole season. If you let that first period go 0-0, everything really tightens up. Everybody's both sides are gonna be like, okay, well, nothing happened that first period. Now, what am I gonna do? Heading into this next period, and Caleb, I guess he really wanted to ride out that second period, and he was in a position where he probably should have just given up the escape a couple times, and he ended up getting a stall point, which you don't want to do really in the second period like that, because then you get into now you're in the position where you have to ride out the whole period to get that real advantage, and he ended up not having. I think Bianchi escaped right at the end of the second period, so now he's in a position where he's got to get out quick, and he just kind of rushed it. Got to his feet really pretty easy, but Bianchi caught his wrist and kind of set him back, gave up a couple back points, and it almost looked like he was trying to just kind of catch him on his back, but Bianchi did a good job of realizing that and just kind of switched his hips and ended up in a pretty tight headlock.
Yep. And when you're in that, anybody who's wrestled knows when you're in that position, you're in deep trouble. There's not much you can do when somebody's got you in a tight headlock like that. So that's unless you're Daton Fix, I guess, or you're not in that position very often.
Yeah, I mean, especially with that much time on the clock. There was still a minute 40 seconds left on the clock. That's a long time to fight off your back in a headlock.
Yeah.
It's
and you're in the middle of the mat.
yeah, you're right in the middle of the mat. It's just not a position that you really want to find yourself in. But I think that Caleb just needs to have a little bit more urgency in that first period. Just create more action. The last couple of matches we've seen, there just hasn't been a whole lot of action in the first period, which is I think not what Caleb needs. I think he needs action. You look back at some matches, even the match he lost against the Virginia Tech kid. There was a lot of action, and he ended up losing the match. But Caleb looked like he was the fresher guy, and he looked like if they wrestle again, he's gonna win. He's gonna win that match. So I think that when Caleb gets into those type of matches, it's to his benefit.
If you look back at like Hippolito's record now, I think people kind of got the book on him from the Caleb Fish match. Is he's going to bait you into positions that he wants you to be in, that you want to be in as well, and he's going to get the upper hand there. And Fish, he seems like the book kind of got out on him of he wants to go upper body, and if we avoid that position, then you'll be able to go into the second period tied, and from there you can kind of figure it out. But we know he can also work legs and go get a takedown when he needs to. So it's just I think you got a good point there on sense of urgency, and finding a way to just go score a point in the first period, whether that be where you're most comfortable working, upper body, some kind of collar tie, or find a way to work some misdirection, get to a leg, and finish a takedown. It's easy for us to say that here on the, but yeah, it's just end of the day. Go out and just work. I think similar to Woodcraft, just force the match that you want to wrestle. Don't let it come to you. Back to the Bianchi brothers, Cam Amin and Joe Bianchi here wrestled a tight 4-2 match. Amin seemed frustrated again. You could feel him wanting to go out and score more points, which I think, based on his track record, is a good sign because he has wrestled extremely well in March through his career, and with that, going out and trying to warm up to that point, he seems to just be like gnawing at the bit to go score, and sometimes it's harder to do against a guy that is just not gonna give you anything, and that's was Bianchi's strategy. To your point earlier, Little Rock seemed to just say, hey, we're not going to get bonused. We're not going to give up a lot of points here. We may lose, but we're not going to get embarrassed. And that seemed to be the match in this case, where Cam wrestled well, just tough defense from Bianchi.
Yeah, you can just see that Cam, he wants to go out there and score points. He's not having these close matches just because he wants to go out there and wrestle one takedown match every time. He wants to go out there and put points on the board. And I think that he's going to eventually. He's gonna, as the season, we come to postseason, he's gonna be in some matches where it might be close, it might be a one takedown match in the first period, but eventually he's gonna break through and start putting some takedowns on the board. And it's gonna be good to see whenever that time comes.
Definitely. Similar thing happened here with Dean Hamady taking on Tyler Brennan. He got a 6-1 win, and Brennan just parked it. Like, just wasn't. And he actually got into some positions that were kind of shocking to see him scramble out of or avoid a takedown, get out of bounds, whatever. This is an experienced guy. Brennan's been around that program a long time. He's been backing up. Tristan. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyway, he was at Oklahoma State and he transferred over there. DJ frustrated as well that he kept getting to positions that he wanted to be in, and then Brendan kept finding ways to wiggle out of them, and wasn't going to take any risks either. He wasn't going to put himself in any weird positions. And I'm surprised there wasn't more action forced by the ref in a couple of these. But hey, you came out with a win. let's get some rest and look ahead to Iowa at the end of the day.
Yeah, Dean he wrestled pretty well on his feet. Got to a couple takedowns. Was looking to get the major decision at the end of the match. So it's always good to see. Had a little bit of problem with some legs in the I think it was the second period, and that's kind of the second time, maybe even a third time we've seen that this year, where someone's rode committee with legs. So it's something that he probably needs to identify and just work on the next couple of weeks. He has the potential to see the Oklahoma kid sacks again at Big 12s, who we know is going to ride legs, and you never know who you'll see at nationals. You could see a leg rider at nationals too. So it would be just it's important to be ready for anything. Because a lot of these guys, they're not going to be able to wrestle with him on his feet. So the only position that they could slow him down is from top. If they get that leg in, we've seen it a couple times now where he's had a little bit of problem getting out. So just identifying that and working through that position. And I see really no if he gets that cleaned up, I don't see much weakness in his wrestling right now.
Yeah. 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 The Big 12, I mean, your projected semifinal opponent is going to be tough on top, whether it's Gavin Sachs or Cade DeVos from South Dakota State. He's the same way. He's a really, really tough leg rider. And then Keegan O'Toole is going to identify that. If he's healthy and you're wrestling him in the Big 12 finals, like, he's somebody who can adapt to your weakness. And I think that's a highly anticipated match. So if that's what we get, then that's the guy you're gunning for end of the day, and that's the national champion, favorite. So you're gonna have to get out from under him. I mean, he's tough in those positions. He's tough in all positions, but especially he's always been very good on top. I think when he was able to beat David Carr, that was a lot of the times he was able to get an advantage in that part of the wrestling. So it was it's somebody you're gonna have to go out and get out from underneath. But yeah, I mean, Hamity has just been incredible to watch. We've talked about it a million times of him just having a million different offensive attacks that are very effective, and he's hard to stop. And that's been fun to see, and it's going to be exciting to watch him over these next few weeks. Dustin Plott picked up a win over Brock Del Senor, Signore, maybe. Anyway, a 7-2 win there for Dustin. Kind of the same thing. They just weren't going to give up bonus points. That seemed to be the goal for these Little Rock guys and these upper weights, was just don't give up any easy points for the Oklahoma State guys.
Yeah, Plot was doing a good job of getting the legs. The guy he was wrestling was just kind of really scrambly whenever he was getting on the single leg, which Plot's wrestled a couple guys this year who have been that way. And so he's just got to find a way to finish those singles. If you never know, you find yourself on Parker Keck-Eisen's leg or Carter Strachey, you're gonna have to finish that shot. So they're definitely gonna be able to scramble. They might not be as funky, but they're definitely gonna have something for whenever you get on a single leg. So just working the next couple of weeks for him on finishing single legs, and I know that he's been doing that. He even grabbed me yesterday and wanted me to kind of be funky on a single leg. So he's definitely trying to identify that and work on ways to finish when guys are rolling around and kind of kicking out on him. So good to see him taking some initiative and really trying to get better in that position.
That's great to hear. Just find the weaknesses and try to practice eliminating those. It's great. I'm glad that he's out there doing that. Luke Serber with the big upset win over the returning All-American, Stephen Little for Little Rock. Really, really, really good win here for Luke Serber. We talked about it last week. He hasn't had a ton of big tests this year. This was the first one. He's got a big one in a couple weeks. How do you get to where you want to be? And I think he kind of showed that. He wrestled a close match. He wrestled to his strengths. He forced some scrambles, and he came out on top. And we've seen that from him all season, really. And it was nice to see him be able to execute that against a guy like Little, who's a really, really high-quality wrestler.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times. Luke's wrestling as good as he has in his career. You look at his record; he's only lost one match, and he's avenged that only loss that he's had. So he's been, great all year. Did a really good job of getting the takedown early in that match. Got the takedown, and then kind of, you don't want to give up points at the end of periods like he did. Gave up a takedown right at the end of the second period, and you almost kind of you could feel the momentum start to shift a little bit. All the momentum kind of goes into Little's favor there, and then Luke just decides, I'm gonna put a hard ride on this guy and win this match, and that's really you love to see that. He's done a really good job all year of riding guys, and it's definitely a position that's improved this year for him. And it's something that he's going to have to do if he's going to want to beat the top the top three guys at that weight. He's going to have to be able to ride and just slow the match down from the top position on some of those guys.
Without a doubt. I mean, yeah, you're spot on there. Buchanan, Cardenas, and Ferrari are guys that are really solid in most positions. They're gonna slow down matches as well. I mean, that's kind of their strategy, is especially in the case of Ferrari, just kind of let it come to you, score that double leg, and then kind of park it. We know that well, right? Buchanan, similar deal. He's got a varied offense, but he only uses it when he has to. It's going to be an interesting postseason at 197 pounds, I think. And I think that Serber is 100% in that conversation as somebody that can perform extremely well here. We know who Luke Serber is. But to your point, this is the best he's wrestled in his career, and you just got to be excited for him. I mean, he's passed every big test he's had. He's beaten the next 2 or 3 guys in the Big 12 that are right there, with him. They're younger, Novak and Volker. So it's just going to be fun to watch for sure. Luke Serber. And speaking of fun to watch, you got Wyatt Hendrickson out there doing Wyatt Hendrickson things, picking up tech falls and getting off the mat as fast as possible, and trying to just punish the people for stepping on the mat with him. It seems to be, how do I go less than 5 minutes, and how do I make this guy never want to come out here and wrestle me again?
Yeah, I mean, he got a tech fall in, I think, just over 2 minutes. So
yeah, 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty impressive. He obviously, I think he was really wanting to pin that kid, I think he was pretty close a couple times if the ref would have just slapped the mat. But he's wrestling awesome, so fun to watch, and he's just going out there and wrestling how the coaches want everybody to wrestle. He's going out looking to score points, and he's just dominating guys. So it's going to be exciting to watch him against those top guys. I'm really eager to see how he does.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see it. I mean, that'd be great to see how he's. And we're going to get into this now, I guess, on recruiting and development and all that stuff. But for the transfer, we've been saying a lot all year on you've really got, out of the 5 guys that you're kind of question marks about, how do you see 2 or 3 of them come up and make it to the podium? Luke Serber, Tegan Jameson, Caleb Fish, Carter Young, Reese Whitcraft, Troy Spradley, right? Like those guys, that's a good indicator of how do these coaches and how does this new crew in Stillwater elevate what they've got. With the transfers and Dustin Plott, it's, and to an extent Troy Spratley, it's how do you maximize what they are and get them over that hump. Like Hamity is a great example of somebody that has two guys in front of him that we don't actually really know how he's going to compete against Keegan O'Toole and Levi Haynes. Haynes, I think, is an interesting case. He's and this staff is very familiar with him, but he's coming up from 157, all that stuff. Hamity matches up really well with him. O'Toole, they've never really hit. I don't think they've hit at all.
Yeah.
And 3 years in the same weight class and both being top or all Americans, it's kind of weird that they've never hit. But O'Toole's so funky, right? And he excels in just scoring from every position he's in and chain wrestling. But we're seeing Hamity's really good at that too. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they match up with each other. And can he win a national championship after not being an All-American last year? Yes, he absolutely can. And that's the question that you're asking of this coaching staff is like, how are you going to maximize these guys that you got? Wyatt Hendrickson, another great example. You've got two world beaters. You've got an Olympic gold medalist, a two-time national champion, the guy with all the accolades in the world, two-time Hodge winner, right? In Gable Steveson sitting there, and kind of a freak thing that he was able to get an extra year of eligibility, which is fine. It is what it is. And then Greg Kirkfleet, who has just been right there as he's a multiple time finalist. He's a national champion. He's beaten Wyatt. I think it was a really close match. How does Wyatt elevate over those guys and win a national championship? Or that's kind of the question mark. Same with Dustin Plott. How does he get over Parker Keckheisen, Carter Starachi? How does Cam Amin improve? So looking at that and judging the performance of this year, it becomes kind of interesting to think like, okay, well, they didn't really recruit any of these guys. I think that Amin may have been the only one that came to OSU really after the decision was made, because Fish, Hamity, Hendrickson were pretty well. We were pretty already. I mean, Hamity and Fish had already committed. Hendrickson, we pretty well knew he's going to come to OSU. So, like, if they can maximize these guys that they adopted, then what are they going to do with the guys that they were able to get commit? And we can pull that up. I mean, we've got a pretty good look here on guys that are committed. How do they fit into the lineup? What's their eligibility look like? All that stuff. You've got, and I'm going to come over here to these recruiting ranks and blow it up a little bit. Because you start to ask, like, just mathematically, top 15, top 20 recruits are more likely to go on and win national championships. There are outliers. It's not an end-all, be-all thing. But OSU's recruited really well over the past, forever. But some of these blue chip guys, Carter Young, like, he was an average number 15 rank in his class. How do you get him performing at that level, right? Dustin Plott, same thing. Like, he's a national finalist. He's performed really well. How does he perform at that level? How do you get him up there? And OSU's got a lot of guys coming in that are in that, they're highlighted orange here. They're in that realm with D. Lockett, Landon Robideau, Sergio Vega, and then for the class of 26, Jax Forrest and Dreshaun Ross so far. They're all guys that we need to be excited about. Cody Merrill, same thing. Braden Thompson. Um, but it's just a question of like, how do we get them up to that place of, okay, we've got talent that can win national championships. How do we keep them motivated? How do we get them elevated to the place where they're going to finish on top of the podium? And we're very confident in that. Hasn't necessarily been the case.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you're judged as a coach is um, how well do your guys do in the postseason? Can you get them to peak at the right time and really perform in March? Uh, and I'm eager to see what the mindset is and what the practices are like in those weeks leading up to the Big 12 tournament and the national tournament. I'm they're obviously coming from a place like Penn State where they've done a really good job over the past 10 years at getting guys to perform in March and winning a lot of national titles. So it'll be interesting to see what those practices are like and what they're saying to the guys. Because I'm sure they're gonna they've been in a spot where they know what's been working for them. So I'm eager to see. I'm sure it's not going to be exactly like what they're doing there because they want to do their own thing as well. So it's just going to be exciting to watch.
Well, and you look at Penn State, and they're not going anywhere. Like these guys are young that they've got that are in their lineup, um, and they're going to fill in the ones that are, graduating, your Bo Bartlett's of the world and Greg Kirkfleet's of the world. They're going to fill in with guys who are number 13 in their class or number 5 in their class or whatever, right? In their future classes, they've got, top guys locked up. Marcus Blaze is pretty well considered to be a sure thing at 133, 141 pounds, right? PJ Duke, similar deal, 157, 165 pounds. He's a guy that's just been really, really, really good in the prep level. And when these guys or when they go to Penn State, they are still really, really good. Tyler Kasak, national finalist. He's the number 9 guy in the country. Levi Haynes, national champion. Um, the one who's kind of Josh Barr's having a great year this year. He's number 1 in the country. Carter Strachey, 4-time national champion. So, and Craig Kirkley, national champion. So their outliers are kind of weird, right? But like their 165 pounder went to Cal Baptist and was he was an unranked guy, just kind of out of nowhere, and then he wins a world gold medal. Like he makes the team, wins a world gold medal when he's a freshman at Cal Baptist, and then he enters the portal and goes to Penn State. And it's just like okay, how are they able to just maximize this? And yes, we want we want our guys to do their own thing, but like if you learned from that system of like, okay, well, here's what we're doing, and it's practices are fun, and we do mindset coaching, and we're grateful, and we do all this stuff, then if that's the secret sauce, then great, right? I'd see that stuff is controllable, and then if you get the talent on campus, then you can repeat that. But it's going to be curious. Yeah, I'm very curious to see. And Iowa's still going to be good. They've got Angelo Ferrari, who looks to be a guy that is going to be very competitive when he gets into the lineup. And then they got Bo Bassett committed, who we're pretty confident is going to be a really, really good prospect for them, or a really good wrestler for them. But they've kind of struggled on the recruiting front. They've got small classes, and they're kind of in the position that OSU has been in over the past decade or so. Of they're able to get talent. How do they maximize it? It's interesting to see how these newer blood's going to get us there. And to that point, I want to make sure we talk about Jax Forrest and his commitment and what he was able to what he means for Oklahoma State. I mean, yeah, he's spent a lot of time in Stillwater. You know, he came and sought you out, right, as somebody that he wanted to train with as he was getting ready for um, age group world championships. But he's also gone out and he is winning college tournaments as a college or as a high school sophomore. He's uh, competitive for Olympic spots, and it's uh, I want to give you some room to talk about him and help the Oklahoma State fan understand how big a deal it is that he's going to be coming to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, if I could have picked anybody to come to Oklahoma State, it would have been Jax Forrest. He's not only is he a great wrestler, but he's just a great kid. He's someone that I've gotten really close to over the past couple of years, and he's gotten really close to my family as well. So we were definitely really excited that he decided to become a Cowboy, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The style that he wrestles it's unique, but he scores a lot of points, and I think that it's going to translate really well to college. He's really good in all positions. He's got that, just has that kind of instinct where he'll just go for it. He's not gonna hold back. He's not afraid to just go out there and wrestle, and I think that's why he's had a lot of success already in his career. You've seen him wrestle some really good guys already on the senior level, and he's been right there with pretty much everybody. So it's exciting for him. He's going to put himself in, and I think the best training environment for him is here at Oklahoma State, and uh, his career is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
What is it from a skills perspective that has allowed him to be as competitive as he is, as young as he is?
Yeah, I think it's just that kind of style he wrestles. He's not someone that's super strong. He's not someone that does just one thing that's really good. He has a lot of different attacks, and he's really good at scrambling, and he does just a lot of things that are unique, which you don't feel on everybody you wrestle. Every time I wrestle him, he's doing something different, and it's good to see. It's just this new age of wrestling where a lot of the guys, they've done a lot of kind of play wrestling and a lot of just like scrambling, rolling around. You watch videos of him and Bo Bassett, just kind of flow wrestle, and they it doesn't stop. They're constantly trying to go to the next thing. They're just really good at chain wrestling, and Jax is really good at that. He's good at putting two things together, three, four. He'll just, whatever you do, he's gonna keep wrestling, and it's just a really good style for college, and he's gonna have a lot of success.
Yeah. Well, with him and D Lockett and Dreshaun Ross, now you've got him committed. Landon Robideau, Sergio Vega, Cody Merrill, um, Cale Hughes, Braden Thompson's going to be a redshirt sophomore next year. So like these are all. What do we just rattle off 6 names there that are all guys that are there as people that can definitely they have the skill to go out and win titles. Um, it's just a matter again. It's just a matter of converting that. And to your point, I do think that a guy like these guys at the lighter weights, especially, um, uh, have a good opportunity to put themselves in the best position with you, RBY, Thomas Gilman, Jimmy Kennedy. You know, that's people are probably coming from all over to to be a part of that at this point. So I think we are seeing that a lot, right? Like there's quite a few guys who have been coming into the RTC to work out and just be kind of around that environment. So um, those are all guys that we could see immediate impact from as soon as next season with Lockett, Thompson, Hughes, Robideau. Um, I think it just depends. I mean, you're kind of looking at having champagne problems too, of where you're going to have two or three guys stacked up at weight classes that are um, all good enough to start at pretty much everywhere else, which is a good problem to have. And then retention becomes the question. And Penn State's been really, really good at that, at keeping guys in state college, even if they're not going to start. Like that Barraclaw at Utah Valley, he was in state college for 5 years, right? And just sat there, and now he knocks off Peyton Hall and is going to be the one seed in the Big 12 tournament more than likely. And um, it's just a fascinating thing to watch. And it's going to be fun to see if that's the environment that gets built in Stillwater.
Yeah, I've said it a lot. It's just a really exciting time to be a Cowboy, wrestling fan.
For sure.
Just a lot to look forward to. Have a lot of young talent coming in, so it's just going to be really exciting.
For sure. For sure. Well, Dayton, thanks as always for that insight. It's great stuff with Jax. That's definitely a really exciting commitment, especially when you tack it on to Dreshaun Ross. I know they're not done with 2026. There's a couple other top 10 guys that are uncommitted that they're chasing, and there's some other guys that you need to fill out the class with. So you got the two big ones. So you got the heavyweight prospect that was really important that they liked a lot. And you've got Jax Forrest, who's a generational talent. And I think that there's a lot of story to be written here. And we're still a couple of years away from them being on campus too. So we got to enjoy what we get between now and then as well. So make sure to, like and share and do all the things that, you need to. Really, my one ask is if you know a wrestling fan that doesn't listen to Dynasty Defined podcast, share it with them. They're not going to get technical breakdowns like you get from a four-time NCAA or a five-time NCAA All-American and a world silver medalist for sure. So definitely appreciate all you're doing for us, Dayton, and looking forward to keeping it going. And we got a lot to talk about next week with the Iowa duel. That's going to be a really, really interesting matchup. And I think that it'll be a great gateway to see where some of these guys stack up going into the postseason. So
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening.
Yep. Thank you.